Hello and welcome back to the channel, David's Insight. So today I'll be going over the Miraculous London special, titled On the Edge of Time, and while going over, I'll also share my thoughts and give the special an overall rate at the end. Without further ado, I'm going to just head straight on into the special. We begin the special with the Table of Cerise, better known as Lila, shown, with items including a book holder with a note, 3 jewelry boxes with watches, a time travel device, 2 phones, a map, a trapped Nuru and his Miraculous. Nuru attempts to escape from there but is stuck in a magical bubble. Timestalker then appears, deacumatizing herself, revealing herself to be Cerise, who later reacumatizes herself into Spectral Looter, a ghost-themed supervillain. Nuru tries warning her of the consequences, but Spectral Looter ignores him and uses her power to disappear into the ground. Nuru then sadly says to himself, "This is the end." We then cut to the opening. After the opening, Bunnix and her 2 future selves are seen playing a game in the burrow, with Granny Bunnix ending up as the winner, taking account of the wins she and the other 2 have received. Suddenly, she and adult Bunnix start to fade away, with adult Bunnix telling her younger self it's the end of time. Bunnix panics, unsure of what to do except wishing for a heads up by her future selves, and looks at a short recap of the series, from origins to now. Then, the portal of time she was looking at disappears, and tries to find another, but more and more fade out. Until Bunnix finds one that contains a worried Marinette, as another wish is presumably made, making her realize there's a problem. Meanwhile, in the current timeline, Bug Noir is currently flying to London to set Adrien and Kagami free, and inform them of Gabriel's passing and so-called heroics. She then arrives at the building and proceeds to Kagami's room and blasts the door open with her cataclysm, and Kagami asking her if it is over. Bug Noir then replies with a yes. Then, she tells Kagami that Adrien cannot know about his father being the supervillain, but Kagami then tells Bug Noir that she is blinded by love, but if this is her wish, then she'll honor it. She then proceeds to reveal to Kagami that her mother was Gabriel's accomplice since the beginning, and with the situation her mother had nothing to lose. And that she could admit Gabriel Agresti was Monarch, causing Adrien to find out. Bug Noir was informed by Kagami that Adrien changed when he tried to confront his father, and that she changed when she met her, claiming anyone can change, including her mother, and so she'll talk to her afterwards. They then head to Adrien's room. Bug Noir attempted to cataclysm the door, but Gorilla stops her and scans the door, to which it automatically opens. Adrien questions why Bug Noir was here and not his father. Bug Noir then sadly reveals to Adrien that Gabriel is dead, calling him a hero. Adrien was in complete shock and couldn't believe what he had just heard. Bug Noir then proceeds, lying to Adrien that Monarch had held his father and Tomo Tsurugi hostage and forced them to create the alliance rings, so that he could miraculize every single alliance holder. My thoughts on this is that I highly disagree with Ladybug lying to Adrien. If she had to lie to someone, it should have just been the public, so that Natalie wouldn't have to go to jail. However, I do understand that it's going to be an important plot point later and build suspense and create tension. Adrien claimed he saw the magic ladybugs, which he knew Monarch has been defeated. Bug Noir continues, saying that Monarch was about to make a wish, but then Gabriel pounced on him, taking the Miraculous from Monarch and making a wish, exchanging his and Monarch's lives, and saved Natalie and Bug Noir. Bug Noir tries consoling Adrien, but he lashes out, asking aggressively, claiming Bug Noir's magic ladybugs are supposed to repair everything, but Bug Noir replies that she tried everything. Kagami then takes over in consoling Adrien. I believe this scene was done really well, as it was very emotional, and I'm sure the audience felt it themselves. Even Adrien's bodyguard was in shock. Adrien said that if his father hadn't locked him up, he could have saved him, and starts crying. Kagami comforts the devastated Adrien, then tells Bug Noir thank you, and tells her that she has things to do. Bug Noir then goes back to Paris and heads to the Agresti mansion and embraced by Natalie. Then she uses Cataclysm to destroy any evidence of Gabriel Agresti being Monarch. Afterwards, Ladybug answers questions about Monarch and tells the citizens that they've lost the butterfly Miraculous and that there is no connection between Gabriel and Monarch. Adrien and Kagami are then brought back to Paris. He then hugs Natalie as Kagami rejoins her mother and leaves, while Adrien hugs Marinette.
It was very wholesome to see Marinette and Adrian reunite.
Then, she returns home, with the Kwamis cherishing in joy that they are all free, but it turns into sadness when they see the state of their guardian. She quickly phone calls Alia and puts the Miraculous in her drawer and writes in her diary. The Kwamis fall asleep and so she goes to bed too, but first consoles with Tiki and Plag, asking them if she did the right thing. They say that they are not the Kwami of truth, therefore they can't answer her question.
Tiki suggests that Marinette takes a well-deserved rest and she ends up falling asleep.
Unknown to her, moments later, Cerise, akumatized as spectral looter, arrives in her room and steals all of the Kwamis, including the ladybug and cat Miraculous.
Marinette eventually wakes up and finds out that someone is making a wish.
She calls for Tiki and Plag before realizing that she no longer has her Miraculous, but before the wish affects her too, she is pulled into the burrow.
And she is reunited with Bunnix, telling her that there is something wrong.
Bunnix emphasizes that this wish is way more than the others, seeing all burrow screens go black and fade, meaning someone has caused a wish, and which resulted in what the older Bunnixes said before. Despite Marinette freaking out, Bunnix assured her everything would be fine, but before they get to business, Marinette is given a life vest. Feeling confused, Bunnix explains to Marinette that time travel is a complex matter and they'll use the vest to differentiate her from all the other versions of Marinette.
Realizing that her earrings are gone, current Marinette thought she would be useless, but they then decide to go back in time to get them from the past back to Marinette's first day as a holder.
Meanwhile, past Marinette renounces her jewels, causing past Tiki to disappear. Then she hears her parents calling.
Current Marinette took her Miraculous, releasing past Tiki, confused but realizing they were in the burrow. She asks, "When are we?" Then Marinette explains the mission, where the Kwami happily agreed to help. Then, current Marinette transforms into Chronobug.
Examining the past, the duo found out that an akumatized victim snuck into Marinette's room and stole all of the jewels.
So current Chronobug enters her past self's room while staying in contact with Bunnix.
Despite trying her best, current Chronobug couldn't touch Spectral Looter, and causing the villain to get away, leaving her home while the villain was making the wish. She discovered the only reason why was because Spectral
Looter found who she was and then leapt into the burrow again.
That scene felt really spooky because of how Spectral Looter had no dialogue as well as her ghost-like abilities. With the situation, Bunnix offers to go through time again, but Chronobug knows how pointless it is. Eyeing her Lucky Charm object, a calendar, she had a better idea, going back in time to try and stop Spectral Looter from knowing her real identity and taking the Miraculous. And yet, the only time she can't think of was during recreation. By re-examining the events they discovered during Bug Noir and Monarch final fight while rewinding, seeing the butterfly Miraculous in its state. Current Chronobug opted to grab it to ensure all of the Miraculous safety, but it was turned down by Bunnix, believing she'd be haunted by that choice forever, leading to history changing, as well as Bunnix remembering when trying to solve a problem, don't go and create more problems. Anyway, they continue to examine the past. To their shock, they discover that someone else entered the mansion during the fight and saw everything. At first, Bunnix thought they had another akumatized victim on the loose until Ladybug denied it. Seeing this villain's actions, current Chronobug deduced they weren't a villain but a new evil butterfly Miraculous holder. So Bunnix opens a portal for current Chronobug to stop Timestalker from learning her identity. Despite Chronobug preventing them from succeeding, the villain gets away, and much more to their horror, the burrow hasn't been restored, understanding the villain will still know her identity. They see that after she retrieved all the jewelry, past Bug Noir followed Natalie to where the Kwamis were imprisoned. Pausing the window, the duo discovered that Timestalker had followed them and was still listening in and wanted to look for the right moment. After using her restoration power, past Bug Noir was still unsure what to do about Adrian. Current Chronobug knew this was the moment to intervene. Letting the rest of the event play out, past Bug Noir asks Natalie if Adrian knew any of this, to which Natalie retorts no, but then she asks if past Bug Noir did the same in telling Adrian her identity, but she answered no, never, or at least until after Monarch was defeated. But seeing that things didn't turn out like they hoped, she couldn't tell Adrian the truth until the butterfly Miraculous was safe in the box. Rewinding time again, Ladybug and Natalie are talking about Adrian and what's best for him. This time Timestalker gets away with the knowledge. She tries going back in time again, and this time current Chronobug pulled the villain into the burrow, believing that the Akuma was in the wristwatch. She tried to smash it, but there was no butterfly, causing the villain to disappear back to their own time, equipping themselves with another watch, but the book was blank. But the villain refuses to give up and tries again. Meanwhile, in the burrow, the duo discovered that the villain didn't have the akumatized object on them. So they opted to try again, following past Bug Noir's trail to London, but Bunnix still finds current Chronobug riveted to that spot. Remembering how past Bug Noir convinced Natalie not to tell the truth, knowing that she'll go to jail and that Adrian still needs a mother and will only tell Adrian half the truth as well as the media. Fast forwarding afterwards, once in London they see past Bug Noir enter the building, but then the lights go out, making current Chronobug realize with shock that Timestalker made it to London before her and heard past Bug
Noir talking to Kagami. Meanwhile,
current Chronobug catches Timestalker and engages in a fight, but it ends with Chronobug getting tangled in her yo-yo and Timestalker getting the information, refusing to give up the heroine summons her lucky charm again, but her weapon is sent flying regardless. She receives an object hand sanitizer. And yet, she gets launched back into the burrow. Frustrated, she refused to let them escape again, but Bunnix says they could do this forever, but there are times when you must call it quits before it gets too repetitive. Then, eyeing her object and having an idea, Bunnix says they are doomed, right? But Chronobug says not yet, not unless she has the tool she needs by making a quick stop into her past self's room.
With Bunnix's help, she grabs Timestalker's book and uses lotion to erase the Marinette's identity.
She then goes back into the portal and fights with Timestalker, revealing that they were much cleverer than the former Hawkmoth, which I agree on. And that she will get the Miraculous and reveal the new one's identity one day before getting back into the burrow. I believe the choreography in this fight scene was done really well. Then, Timestalker returns where she de-evilizes back into Cerise Bianca, and Nuru begs her not to read the book but finds out that Chronobug tricked her into thinking Gabriel is Ladybug. Cerise ends up throwing a tantrum and threw her table on the ground, completely ignoring Nuru was there. Poor Nuru, am I right?
Regardless, Nuru is happy that Ladybug's secret identity is safe, but Cerise snaps her fingers, causing Nuru to be paralyzed. Then, Chronobug and Bunnix watch in joy as the burrow and the timeline is restored back to normal, as Timestalker had stopped trying from finding out Ladybug's identity. Soon they are greeted by Bunnix's older selves, knowing that the new Hawkmoth is more threatening than the previous one. Ladybug then asks Bunnix to stay in the burrow. But then Chronobug is hesitant to restore everything and asks the Bunnixes if she was right to hide the truth from Adrian to protect him, but they only say lying to him or telling him the truth can have very different consequences, with a share of happy and sad moments. The most important thing about the choices in life is how one owns up to them. Which I believe is a way of them saying she did make a mistake, which is definitely going to lead to something bigger later on. Chronobug asks if it was because she saw in the future, but current Bunnix relays that the ultimate weapon that saved the universe wasn't her lucky charm but what's up in her mind. With that, she activates her lucky charm, returning both her and Pastiki back to their points in time. With past Marinette returning to room unaware that the earrings were taken but intended to give them to Alia, knowing she'll be a great hero. Meanwhile, present Marinette returns to her room in joy, happily reunited with Tiki and Plag, who are confused about their guardian's glee. Later, Marinette begins making the Miraculous back into their original forms, this time more prettier, and add new features to prepare for the new Hawkmoth, but not alone. This one will face the whole team. Realizing what this means, the Kwamis are in joy as their guardian returns them to their holders, so she won't lose the Miraculous like before, but retorts that she'll miss them all, with the Kwamis returning their love in a group hug, and tells Plag to go back to his Cat Noir. The morning was somber as a glum Cat Noir returns to Ladybug on a rooftop, congratulating her on her mission, but when asked for the details, all she said that the mission was complicated. Even more so when she asks him for advice on going too far to protect someone you love. At first he believes about sacrificing oneself, but the heroine clarifies about keeping a huge secret so big that you want to share it because it's too much, to the point of crying and needing comfort. On the verge of breaking too, Cat Noir says he's aware of it, then the duo embrace each other, apologizing to one another. Cat Noir for not being there with her, and Ladybug for how things ended, especially losing the butterfly Miraculous, but he is still happy that Monarch is defeated and promises to get the jewel back, just like old times, doing their signature pounded while looking out. In the post-end card scene, Nura watches Cerise pick up the butterfly Miraculous, put it on and transforms, vowing revenge on Ladybug as the special ends, while leading into the beginning of Season 6. Now that I've covered the entire special, I am now going to share my final thoughts and give an overall rate. First off, the transition into the start of Season 6 was done really well.
Especially since originally I wasn't a big fan of the animation, but seeing it in a higher quality and actually portrayed in the show made it start to grow on me. However, a couple problems with the special, but they're minor issues and not too big enough not to overlook.
Firstly, there was no acknowledgement of the events taken place in representation.
When Bunnix was recapping the events, she stated that Ladybug found out Gabriel was monarch in the episode Conformation,
completely dismissing the events of representation when Felix and Kagami put on that performance to reveal Gabriel was monarch to Marinette.
So it got me quite confused as to why that episode was ignored. On an unrelated note, I'm not sure how to feel about Lila or Cerise's constant design changes. I'm not sure if blonde hair suits her, but I'm sure I'll adjust to it eventually. Now on to the final, sort of issue, but I wouldn't really call it a problem, is the fact that a lot of people had a problem with the special not featuring a lot of scenes taking place in London, hence the title, The London Special. Now it was an issue, however, I personally found it as something to easily overlook.
Now on to the positives. I really liked the dynamic between Bunnix and Ladybug throughout. I also really liked the villains this episode, and relaying from earlier, that their fight scenes and actions were choreographed really well, considering neither of them had any dialogue. And not just akumatized villains, but Lila herself as the new Hawkmoth was really smart in this episode, which Chronobug even acknowledged her for. The special also had good structure. It did have quite a gloomy and emotional tone throughout except for towards the end. Speaking of the end, I feel so bad for Nuru that he has to go through enduring an even worse holder than the last, as Lila had completely lost it at the end and had gone insane, completely disregarding Nuru's well-being. Now on to my final few thoughts. I'm really interested to see where they take the show, as the Miraculous are going to get upgrades and all the holders are now keeping their Miraculous, including Felix. Moreover, I thought it was worth mentioning that either Tomo or Lila could still reveal to Adrian that his father was monarch. And that's it for my general thoughts on the special, so I'm now going to give it an overall rate. Now I do believe the special wasn't the best out of the bunch, definitely not beating the New York special, however I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Relaying to earlier, the positives largely outweigh the negatives. And that's it for my analysis of the special. We have now come to the end of the video. Be sure to like, share, comment and subscribe.